Thank you, Steph. Criticism continues over the slower than expected vaccine rollout. But now the head of Ontario's vaccine task force says we will soon run out of doses if the province doesn't get more, and quick.
We still do not know when the shipment that was predicted for next week of Pfizer vaccines will arrive. And so we will be out of the initial ones by the end of this weekend, and by end of next week, we will be out of the shipment that is going to arrive in this next several days here.
The Ford government is now urging the feds to increase supply to Ontario. Provincial officials also announcing all residents and workers at long-term care homes in Toronto, Peel, York, and Windsor, Essex will get the shot by January 21st. The CEO of the Ontario Long-Term Care Association telling CityNews reporter Malia Sheikh that another problem is waiting for the results after our most vulnerable are tested.
We're doing weekly testing in the lockdown zones, the gray zones, and testing every other week in the other zones. People can be tested one day and 2 days later test positive, but they don't actually get their test for another week.
Even as testing slows, Ontario reported another 3,128 new infections yesterday and 51 new deaths. Just over 35,000 tests were conducted, well under that goal of 50,000 per day. Most of the new cases coming from Toronto, Peel, and York region. So the latest numbers show 1,347 people have been hospitalized, with just over 350 in the ICU. Joseph Brant Hospital in Burlington now announcing it is ready to start accepting patients in a first-of-its-kind pandemic response unit. Have a look.
What we are trying to do is learn from the lessons of the first phase of the pandemic. What we are doing now is we're trying to create capacity in the pandemic response unit so that we can free up conventional capacity.
Okay, so it is 16,000 square feet. It's a field hospital housing 73 beds for COVID-19 patients who are medically stable with mild to moderate symptoms. You just heard from Dr. Prera. He'll be joining us live this morning to discuss how this unit will allow the hospital to continue treating non-COVID patients and better position our fight against the virus. And again, that interview is coming up at 6:30 this morning. A top health official has stepped down from his role with Ontario's COVID-19 advisory board after going to the Dominican Republic over the holidays. Dr. Tom Stewart is the CEO of St. Joseph's Health System and Niagara Health. He was also on 3 provincial health boards dealing with the COVID pandemic and has resigned from all of them. Stewart joins the growing list of politicians and public officials who admitted to traveling out of country, like former Finance Minister Rod Phillips. The PM says everyone has to do their part, politicians included.
All Canadians were so disappointed to see so many examples of folks who should have known better, doing things that put us all at risk.
These broad recommendations of avoiding non-essential travel is really critical. And when they come back, of course, the quarantine measures need to be respected.
If you are traveling, this tweet from Pearson Airport this morning reminding you, as of January the 7th, that is tomorrow, the Government of Canada will require all passengers 5 years and older. You will need a negative test for COVID-19 before traveling by air from another country to return to Canada. There are still a lot of questions on how this is all going to be implemented. So coming up at 7:30, we're going to be hearing from an aviation expert on how this will impact you as well as the industry. A new report from Canada's Department of National Defence suggesting the longer the pandemic lasts, the more likely we'll see a rise in right-wing extremism and a decline in democracy around the world. Now, the scenarios from the research suggesting if the vaccine rollout is effective this year, it could lead to a strong economic recovery and a boost in trust in governments, institutions, and science. But it also suggests the longer this pandemic lasts, then public trust, the longer the pandemic lasts, then public trust, particularly, I should say, in democracies like Canada, going to suffer, along with confidence in international organizations like the UN and NATO. All right, a story we are watching very closely here. If the results are confirmed, Georgia is about to get its first African-American senator as Democrats inch closer to controlling the Senate. Democrat Raphael Warnock, a pastor at the Atlantic Church where Martin Luther King Jr. preached, has knocked off Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler. A second runoff vote, it is still too close to call. If Democrats win both races, they will take control of the Senate, which then gives them majorities in both Congress and the Senate just days ahead of Joe Biden's inauguration. Warnock praised his mother last night, who, as a teen, had picked cotton in Georgia for his success.
The other day, because this is America, the 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton went to the polls and picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator.
Okay, so the Democrats still need to win the other race for full control. Challenger Jon Ossoff is trying to unseat Republican incumbent David Perdue. This race is still too close to call. Okay, a lot to cover here on BT this morning. So here's a quick peek at what we'll be following today. As mentioned, we've got an update on the airline industry. And then 7:40, you know her, Debbie Travis will be joining us on how to mentally reset for the year ahead. I think we all need that. And coming up next in business, did you sell your house in Toronto last month? Chances are you got a pretty nice return. 680 senior business editor Mike Epple, he is up next with some of these record prices from the month.